I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoops, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back.
Hello again, my dear destination manifestation travelers. Welcome back to the show. I will say, like I mentioned last episode, I am literally counting down the days, although I don't really know where I'm counting to, so maybe that isn't the best way to describe it. But I am counting down the days until this podcast is going to take place in my brand new content creation studio. Now, you guys can't see it because you see the wall behind me if you're watching the video, but I am looking out upon a brand new studio that is coming to fruition that is so very exciting. Now, all of this won't matter too much if you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your audio version of the podcast. But for those of you who like to enjoy the video version on YouTube, or if you like to check out little snippets on social media, woo-wee! Buckle up because we are entering the big leagues with this show. I'm so excited. I'm currently in the process of buying all the pretty little decorative things for the studio, which I so deserve. I'm going to admit that I deserve that. I have neglected this office space for so long. I've literally been in this office for, 4 years, and it doesn't look all that great, but I can't wait for it to be decorated beautifully and for the space to be aligning. And I just know that's going to do so much for you guys and your experience of the show, as well as the alignment around the show and the alignment of my business and everything. So I'm so excited. And I've just felt so inspired by this whole process. At first, I'll admit it was a little daunting. I think there was a part of me that had this belief, this false belief that I had to clear up, that I wasn't creative, that I couldn't create this space or create the branding or whatever it might be. And I just kind of had to let that go. I just had to realize how false that was, that in fact, I am very creative. And what you know, once I decided, yep, I'm a kind of big league creative person, I can create this, it all just came so easily. It just came rushing in, which was amazing. And I've just kind of felt so inspired by this whole process after that I've completely redesigned the destination manifestation brand as a whole, which was not even something I really set out to do. But so that is just a fair warning that you'll see some new podcast art in the next few weeks or so too. A complete rebrand of the Brittany Hoops Hypnotherapy and Coaching website, as well as so many fun things on social media, new fun things I'm going to unveil kind of all at once as part of this Destination Manifestation 2.0. So I mention this because I don't want you to be alarmed if at first maybe you don't recognize the podcast art when a new episode pops up on your podcast feed. It's okay. It's the same show. It's still me. We just got a haircut, right? We just have a different look, different colors, right? So I don't really know right now how many more episodes or how many more weeks it will be until the show gets the facelift. But I guess it will kind of depend on how quickly I can get all the decorations in the studio, how quickly things come in the mail. But I will tell you, I am super antsy for all of that to happen. So I hope it's very soon. But in the meantime, I want to focus on something a little different here today, right? I want to focus on our topic here today, which is, the topic is topicking. It's very topical, I should say, and it's very, very much needed right now. So, and I think as I kind of switch gears into what we're going to discuss here today, I will admit that it's maybe a little bit more serious in nature than perhaps some of the things that we typically discuss on the show. But I think it's what we all need to focus on, frankly, and give our attention to. And here's how I know this. It's funny. You all know by now that I work one-on-one. I'm a hypnotherapist and a coach. I work one-on-one with my clients. And thinking back to sort of the end of last year, November of last year, when the US presidential election results were announced, nearly every client I was working with at the time, and probably for the next 2 weeks after the results were announced. They wanted to focus on that, and rightfully so. They sort of wanted to take a mini detour from their original program and focus on easing their anxiety about those election results, which I think was a great choice. You know, we always want to, whenever you go to a therapy session or a hypnotherapy session or a coaching session, you always want to address what is most on your heart and most in your mind during each and every session, even if it's not the original reason why you sought out hypnotherapy and coaching in the first place. We're lucky that we have that flexibility, right? But it made me realize how we, as a collective, as much as you might hate to hear it, and I know I hate to hear it, we manifested these results as a country. And I know that can be a really tough pill to swallow, okay? Because for so many of us, more than half the country in terms of population, we cast our ballot for a different candidate. And so it may not feel like we manifested this president. But today I want to dive into something incredibly interesting about how our brain works, how the brain helps us manifest, that completely explains how we find ourselves in the current political climate that we are in right now. So, if you're a listener in the US right now, you may be feeling overwhelmed. And I don't know, maybe some people in other countries feel overwhelmed too, but you may be feeling overwhelmed by the barrage of scary headlines day in, day out. Executive order this, non-elected Elon Musk that. Like, in fact, I just wanted to check it this morning. I went to NewYorkTimes.com this morning and I counted. There were 7 headlines that showed on the main page, and 6 of the 7 of those headlines had to do with Trump. Like, that is all that's in the news right now. You go on social media, you look at the news outlets, you don't even have to read the articles to feel this sort of avalanche of dread that comes with each and every new headline. And wouldn't you know, headlines have always been designed that way. That's what they are. They're headlines. They're the bold text that they place at the top of the newspaper. And guess what they're designed to do? They're designed to capture your attention. That's why they exist. And right now, with what's going on politically, as well as what we know about the universe manifestation, your attention is your most valuable commodity. I mean, think about it this way. Social media apps are literally designed to keep you on the app, right? To garner more and more hour after hour, scroll by scroll of your attention. You don't have to pay to scroll on Instagram. What you're paying with is not your money, but it's with your time, your attention, your eyes, your thoughts. Think about it this way. Trump, he signs all these flashy executive orders because he wants your attention too. He's capitalizing on the fact that attention equals power. That what you give your attention to, it grows. And he wants power. He wants to grow. And he can't do that without your attention. He can't do that alone. He needs your attention. He needs your support, the support of your attention. And he recognizes also that you can't mobilize, you can't think clearly, you can't refute him, you can't even band together to create positive change if he has your attention. Because you give your attention to him, then that leaves you with 0 resources and attention to do anything else. Like, as long as he has your attention, you are going to remain stuck and overwhelmed. I mean, think of it this, if you guys remember, just remember this past summer, back in 2024, during the election, after he nearly got assassinated, all of the attention was on him. And the Democrats were freaking out, right? And after the presidential debate, Biden performed very poorly. All the attention, all the momentum was on Trump. And Democrats were freaking out. But then do you remember what happened next? I think it was even like within the same week, because I remember being like, whoa, what a week. A week to go down in history, right? Kamala then announced that she was running for president instead. And then the attention completely flipped. The narrative completely flipped. It turned into brat girl summer, right? The collective attention shifted for this beautiful little moment in time. You see, our universe operates by where you place your attention. What's the old saying? Energy flows where attention goes. The more of what you think about is the more that you get. You get more of what you think about. And when you give something your attention, you're thinking about it, right? You can't help but think about it. Now, why does all of this matter? Okay. I'll share with you. I read something super interesting and very interesting quote by the account is called Nicole Neuroscience. She's a great account that I follow on Instagram. And she said this: the more you think something, the more your brain strengthens that neural pathway, even if it's not true. The illusory truth effect is the tendency to believe that something is true after hearing it repeated multiple times, even if it's false. And this effect can occur even when people already know the information is false. Oh, that's a doozy, right? Now, understanding this bit of neuroscience explains a lot about what is happening right now. So let's just break this down. I want to break it down bit by bit, okay? The more you think something, the more your brain strengthens that neural pathway. Okay, so think of it this way. The more you give your attention to something, the more that neural pathway is being strengthened too, even if it's not true. This is key to understand. So Trump realizes that he can just say splashy things that will make splashy, attention-grabbing headlines that will strengthen your neural pathways if you give them your attention. The illusory truth effect is the tendency to believe that something is true once you've heard it repeated multiple times, right? Even if it's false. You know what the headlines often seem to miss here? Me and my friends were talking about this the other day. We're like, why don't we ever see the headlines where it talks about all the courts that are blocking so many of these executive orders? Like, Trump has told so many lies so consistently over time that even fact-checking programs are becoming a thing of the past. We've gotten used to the fact that we've started to adopt them as true. He's got us questioning everything because our brains are designed to start believing things that we hear over and over and over again, even if they are false. Now, this effect can occur even when people know that the information is false. And that's really important because we kind of have to keep on reminding ourselves of that. But even when we remind ourselves of that, it doesn't mean that you can't be susceptible to it. Okay, and this explains how, if you aren't aware of the fact that this can happen to your brain, how, your uncle became radicalized, or how that 20-something guy who's addicted to watching YouTube, who goes down the rabbit hole for hours each night and well into the morning, how he starts to believe that some of this stuff is true. Even when at first he may have thought it was just a joke, or even if he knew it was false. Like, he was above this. And I think that's something, I don't know, I feel like I learned the most when I was on Big Brother, is like all these dynamics that you watch the show at home and think, oh, I wouldn't be that way if it happened to me. Or, oh, like, those people are awful and bad and they, I wouldn't be that way. You think you're above it? I'm sorry to say, it's just human nature. You put yourself in that situation, you'd be the exact same. And that's what's scary to realize. And you have to sort of recognize that, like, this is how our brains work. None of us are above this. Now, the neural pathway of the lie becomes so strengthened that it's become that person's truth when they've repeated it so often in their heads. You follow the breadcrumbs, you give them your attention to those breadcrumbs, they lead you deep into this maze, and it is so easy to get lost inside and not even realize that you're inside of it. I know we can all think of some people that we either know very close to us or perhaps, not so close to us where that's happened. They've gotten lost in the maze and they don't know up from down anymore. Right? And you're like, Brittany, this is supposed to be a positive podcast. I get it. I don't share all of this to scare you. No, that is not the point of this show. In fact, I share this because I want to empower you. If you know it can happen, that means you can safeguard the most important asset that you have, which is your attention. Now, I know a lot of folks are sort of struggling with this paradigm right now, right? They're feeling the push and the pull of like wanting to be informed, but also wanting to protect their mental health. And like, how do you give your attention to something and know what's happening in the world and care about other people and what's happening in the world without getting sucked into all of this, right? And I got to say this, only you are going to know what feels aligning to you. That's your decision to make. Hey, it might be finding new sources that you do trust and getting your information only from those outlets, being discerning from where you ingest your information. For me, it was disabling that little news bar that comes pre-installed on my Windows computer. Okay, that thing, here's what would happen. The headline would just sort of flash on my screen on my computer, and I'd be working, doing something, and it would pull me out of whatever I was focused on, whatever I was working on. It would draw my attention to it. And then I get sucked into fear and doubt and overwhelm, which we know are all very non-aligning feelings. Okay. So it wasn't good. They're paralyzing feelings. And, I feel like those headlines were kind of like bait that were left out for me because they knew that if I willingly gave them my attention, even though it didn't feel like a conscious choice, in fact, it wasn't a conscious choice that I made. And that's the problem, is that it wasn't a conscious choice. I just sort of let myself be distracted by them and therefore gave my attention to them. They then gained my power. Where attention goes, energy flows, power grows, and manifestation happens. One of the biggest ways that authoritarian leaders gain power is by us willingly self-censoring ourselves to the point where they don't even have to do it. They set out that bait again and again and again, and we just gobble it up, right? It's us that gobble it up. It's us that give it attention. And it's us that then catastrophizes those lies in our own minds and then begins to, with repeated listening to it, adopt them as truth and live our lives like it's all coming to an end. Okay? They don't even have to create it. We're creating it. We're adding momentum and energy to that through our attention. So I ask you this. What do you want to create and grow instead? Abraham Hicks, I always quote Abraham Hicks, one of my favorite manifestation teachers, always says, if you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. Okay? It's like they're opposite ends of the same stick. Okay? You got a stick. One end is what you want. One end is what you don't want, right? So next time you read an alarming headline, next time you give it your attention, whether it was conscious or not, I want you to practice this pattern interrupt instead. Okay, instead of casting aside your own alignment and then sinking into overwhelm and fear, I want you to focus on what desire that headline inspired in you instead. There was a reason why that headline didn't feel so good because you wanted something else. What's that other thing that you want? Let's just say the headline says, Trump muses about a third term over and over again. I think this is interesting. Even the headline itself is hinting to the repeated bait that he's setting out, the repeated lie, right? I want you to recognize it for what it is. He's repeating this lie that goes against our Constitution. And the more you give it your attention, the more your brain, not his, adopts it as a potential truth. So here's what the pattern interrupt does instead, okay? What desire does this spark in you instead when you read that? Now, for me, it sparks the desire for someone else to be president, right? 0 third terms for Trump. He's done. His days are ticking, right? Each day is one less day he has remaining as president. And in fact, it inspires the desire for some of my favorite Democratic candidates who I believe have our best interests, my best interests, as well as my fellow Americans' best interests at heart, to step up and to start commanding more attention to their platforms so that they can be president in the next 2028 election. Right? That's the desire that it sparks in me. That's the opposite end of the stick. I know what I don't want, which is the third Trump term. I know what I do want, which is a new term for a new candidate and a new future. So what if instead of spiraling and visualizing and getting sucked into what life would look like with a third presidential term, what if I'm focusing on being a creator? I'm going on the offense rather than the defense. I'm leaving reactor mode behind and I'm going into creation mode. I want to spend my time and attention visualizing, supporting, listening to, giving my attention to those politicians whose voices I want amplified. I'm donating my attention and my momentum and my energy to what I want to grow, right? Whose voices can take back the attention and whose narratives are aligned with creating a new positive future. And this is just something I wish more of our politicians beyond Trump understood this, right? I wish more Democrats would stop playing into reactive mode. Fear doesn't beget more change. Like we've tried that. It doesn't work. You know, when I heard Kamala say again and again during her election, we are not going back. Ugh. I'll tell you, my heart sank because I can tell you she did not consult a hypnotherapist or a neurosurgeon or a neuroscientist about that slogan, right? That mantra to the subconscious mind actually affirms the opposite message of going back. It's a negative mantra, right? The brain cannot interpret on the subconscious level a negative word like not. Okay? We are not going back to the brain is interpreted as we are going back. It's a reactive, defensive statement. Whereas, let's look at a different example. You look at former President Obama's slogan, yes, we can. Ooh, that's a positive affirmation, right? That's a creationary affirmation. That doesn't give a hoot of attention to what the other party is saying or doing. It's painting a picture of what we can create when we give it our attention, when we believe that we can. I mean, he literally was affirming how the universe works, how manifestation works. When you believe that you can, and he did. That's moving from the reactor mode of we are not going back. And because when you say we're not going back, what that assumes is that Trump has decided the direction. He holds the narrative. He's diverted the attention, and we're resisting against that. We're not going back to that. We're fighting against that, right? Versus where Obama was saying, we create the direction. Yes, we can. Don't you feel the difference there? Ugh. And the difference in outcome was apparent too, wasn't it? It's so important to remember the power of our attention. Now, there is some good news with all of this too, okay? Please, this isn't the point of my show is not to, we want to work with this, right? When you understand that enough repetition creates new beliefs in your mind, you might now recognize how we as a country got here, but it's also your way out to something new. It works both ways, folks. Okay? And we can use our brain's functionality in our favor, meaning that we can decide something that might not seem true right now, but that we want, and we can make it true in our minds. Because when we make it true in our minds, that's when it becomes truth in our reality. This is how manifestation works. You give up what is true or what you see around you in your 3D reality, and you decide, you know what? I am going to decide what I want to experience instead. And you then create the belief system that will allow that to become your reality. I would say one of the most interesting pieces of what Nicole Neuroscience said is that you can start to believe something with enough repetition, even if you thought or you knew it was false before. And that's like really good news. That's really good news for those of us who have negative beliefs right now, right? Because this effect can work even when people already know the information is false. This, we say Delulu is the Salulu, right? Isn't that what some TikTokers say about manifestation? We can know the information is false. We can be delusional and think something else instead that goes against what we're seeing and tasting and feeling and touching with our 3D senses. And we can create something new. You can tell yourself new thoughts. And if you tell yourself those new thoughts enough, the key being repetition, you'll start to believe them. And this effect we see is particularly accelerated when you do this process in a relaxed theta brainwave state, which is the state of hypnosis. And I would say the biggest example I can give you of this, when I felt this most viscerally, okay, when I applied this exact process in my own life, was getting onto Big Brother, okay? Many of you guys know the story, but I applied for 7 years, okay? And 6 of those 7 years, I applied, but I didn't think I was going to get on. Like, not really. Like, it felt like this far-fetched dream. Like, oh, that's something for other people, not me. Like, I'm not the kind of person you watch on TV. I'm not the kind of person that's on TV. Like, that's for other people, right? But for some reason, and I don't know why, I just did the action, the physical action of applying anyways. Because I thought back then that it was only the action that mattered. Like, it didn't matter what I thought, as long as I applied, then I had a shot. But like, I know better now, right? That's a very Newtonian way to go about something. It's based in Newtonian physics, that if there's enough force on something that it can happen. But, to do the actions and then not necessarily care about the thoughts or the energy behind them just doesn't work. Okay? I didn't get on the show. In fact, I manifested exactly what I thought. I manifested that this was for other people. And so therefore other people got on the show, not me. But I will tell you what made year 7, magical year 7 of applying on the show different was that during the course of that year, I became a hypnotherapist, right? I started to learn how the brain worked, and I started to work with my brain rather than against it. I knew that my beliefs, that my attention had to be more on the end of the stick of making it onto the show than it was on the end of the stick about how I didn't believe it was going to happen, right? My attention had to be more on that side of the balance beam. You picture it's like a little balance thing, right? Like I had to outweigh my belief and attention on that side. Now, here's the trick. I didn't believe I could make it on the show. Just because I knew that that's what I needed to believe didn't mean I believed it. No, I still had the same thoughts. I hadn't practiced believing I could be on the show at all, right? All I had practiced up to that point was 7 years of thinking that I wanted it, but that I couldn't do it. So that was a very strong neural pathway that was built up and strengthened within me. I had practiced it for 7 years. So I had to practice a new thought so that it could become a new belief, which could become and create a new reality. And the beauty is that my brain did not believe it at first. But guess what? We know that it doesn't matter if your brain believes it at first. It's okay if your brain knows that it's false at first. Without repetition, it felt like I was lying to myself, right? You're going to be on the show. Sure. Yeah, Brittany. Right? You say it once, it feels like a lie. But with repetition, my brain slowly but surely started to believe it. My brain softened to the idea, right? First time Trump said something outrageous, we all laughed. We all knew it was a lie. Millionth time he said it, he's elected president again. It's crazy, but it's how brains work. Okay? And so with this Big Brother example, I was strengthening that neural pathway that said, yeah, why not you? Why not you? Remember, the illusory truth effect is the tendency to believe that something is true after hearing it repeated multiple times, even if it is false. So up until that point, me being on Big Brother was objectively false, right? I had gotten rejected 6 times. That was very true and very false that I would be on the show given the history that had happened. But I repeated that I could be on this show. I repeated it again and again and again, and I repeated it enough that my brain then began to accept it as truth. And here's the secret sauce. Once your brain accepts it as truth, it becomes truth. Remember when the idea of a washed-up reality TV boss named Donald Trump running for president was like a laugh? Like, I remember like joking with my husband, being like, oh yeah, sure, him and Justin Bieber, the 2 presidential candidates, har, 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 har. Like back in 2013, 2014, 2015, the thought hadn't been repeated very much, right? It was a joke. We all knew it was false. But then when you repeat something enough, brains begin to believe it's true. It starts with a few brains and it just seems to spread. It seems to grow. More and more brains begin to believe that it's true. And when brains believe something is true, the universe then lines up that thing to become true. And that's how manifestation works. Manifestation, the universe, it can be hard to hear because I think there's been so many like through religion, so much like moral, like good versus bad, good versus evil, sort of dynamics, this like moralistic sort of thinking. But that's not how the universe works. It's non-discerning, meaning the same process that can manifest Trump as president yet again can also be the same process that will help you manifest your goals, that help me manifest being on Big Brother, starting my own business, marrying my soulmate, manifesting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like manifestation is non-discerning. It's non-judgmental. It's not moralistic. It doesn't just pick the good things to happen. It doesn't discern between good and evil. It just manifests where attention is flowing. So, nothing to the universe is really good or bad. It just is. Okay? So you just manifest what you believe. And all I'm asking you to do is just be a little bit more directive and creationary with what you want to believe. Don't let other people decide what you'll believe just because they say it enough. And you just happen to inadvertently give it your attention enough. Decide for yourself. Don't let others take away your power of attention. Abraham Hicks says that life is on a spectrum, right? The bad keeps getting worse and the good keeps getting better. That's the contrast of life. And why contrast exists is because attention can grow on either end of that spectrum. You keep giving your attention to what is bad in your life will get worse. You keep giving your attention to what is good in your life. This is why we do gratitude practices, right? It keeps getting better. Where do you want to place your attention to and your attention on today? Please, I ask you guys, if there is one thing I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Just remember your power. None of this exists in your reality without your attention to it. If no one would have given Trump two minds, any attention, back in the day, he couldn't have ever become president in the first place. He alone can't do it. It's him and the support around him, the attention to him that gives power, right? He'd just be some old guy playing golf in retirement. Wouldn't that be nice? Like your attention is your power to place wherever you choose. And folks, whether it be Trump or news outlets or social media or whatever, like they want you to forget that you have choice when it comes to your attention. They want this to be a unconscious process. They don't want you to have consciously interrupt that pattern. They want to own it because when you give your attention to them, you give them your power and they become more powerful with your attention. And so I want you to remember that your attention is your gift and it is yours alone. And it's yours to decide. And in fact, it's the key ingredient to manifest the life experience that you desire too. So how do you begin to harness your attention, right? Well, first, you have to notice where it's going, okay? You have to make that unconscious process. I think about like when I had the little news bar on my computer and I just would look down and all of a sudden I'd be directed there, right? That was very unconscious. I was going into an unconscious pattern there. I wasn't saying, oh, Brittany, that's not what we're focused on right now. We're focused on this. No. So you have to catch yourself. Right? When your attention has wandered somewhere that doesn't feel good, when you've given it to Trump or your Instagram feed for too long or wherever else doesn't feel good to you, right? You have to catch it. Those little, have you ever been like to a theme park or like out in a crowded place and you see those like little toddlers where their parents have put on those like little harness leash things? Like it always kind of makes me so sad. Like, I don't know, like kids are not pets, right? Like, I kind of hate that, but I sort of, in a way, understand it. Like they're just trying to keep their kids safe, right? So your attention is like that little toddler, so easily distracted, and it needs to be on that leash. If it wanders off, if it gets distracted by something, you need to be able to guide it back to where you want to go. Okay? You don't want to lose it. Losing your attention is the worst thing that you can do because it's losing your power. And then on top of all of that, right, you do that conscious practice. You've made what was once unconscious and you make it conscious. You also need to spend time, not just once, not just twice, but repeated time, daily time, focusing on where you want to place your attention on instead. Now, I have helped you guys do this, and I will continue to help you do this, right? I have created a hypnotherapy audio where the sole intention is to help you direct your attention, right? The purpose of doing this particular hypnotherapy audio each day is so that you can sit down and you can say and signal to your subconscious mind, hey, here's what I want to give my attention to. Here's what we're actively creating. Brain, universe, let's make sure we're all on the same page. It's like a team meeting for your most important team, right? You direct your attention to what you want and get everybody on the same page. And then you visualize what you want. You give your subconscious mind those instructions to build and strengthen those new neural pathways of that belief in that manifestation for you. And so if you want to do this, if you want to make this a deliberate, repeated practice so that you can start to build and strengthen these neural pathways that are actually going to help you, I want you to do my ultimate manifestation hypnotherapy audio. Okay? It's free for you to download. Just go to BrittanyHoops.com/audio to download it now. The link is in the show notes. And I want you to imagine starting your day. Okay? Starting your day, placing that valuable attention where it's needed most, where you have decided to place it. No one else gets to decide, only you. And then feeling completely aligned with your dreams as you do so. And I will tell you, my ultimate manifestation hypnotherapy audio, it was created to help you do just that. That's the purpose of it, is to repeat it again and again and again and again so that you create new beliefs. And it's my free gift to you. Okay? And it serves as a nice little sneak peek to the powerful hypnosis audios that I'm curating for the Manifested Me Vault. You guys have heard me talk about this past couple episodes. It's my new upcoming subscription manifestation hypnotherapy audio library. Okay? That's going to be debuting later this spring. Oh, it's going to be so good. It's going to be every tool you could ever want to manifest. Everything you need just in one place. That's like the utopia, the oasis of manifestation. It is destination manifestation. I'm creating it for you guys. Okay. So I want you to get access to this free audio today because it gives you just a little taste of what this Manifested Me Vault's going to be like. The link is in the show notes. And please take the first step towards manifesting the life that you deserve. Claim your power back. I want you to be creationary with your attention. No more manifesting unwanted things just because a headline is screaming at you. No, yuck. You are in charge. You are reclaiming your power. And this audio is going to help you do just that. Okay? Oh, good. Fantastic. Well, until next time, I'll catch you in the next episode.